Good day, viewers. Welcome back to the Preaching Humanist with David Oliverio. That is I. Adolescent atheism. I'm going to have a two-part series on this. Let's discuss part one. We'll come back shortly and do part two. Let me ask you a question. Let me make a statement here before we get into part one and before I define what it is. Are Christians wrong? This is a good one. Now, hang with me here. Are believers wrong when they say, because I hear this often, that atheists, those of us that identify as unbelievers, we are hateful, angry, and bitter. Keep that in mind when I talk about adolescence in atheism. Now, the term adolescence, most professionals would say, are the ages of 10 years old up to about 20. It's that stage between childhood and adulthood. And of course, we could make this applicable to every area of your life, but we're going to try to make it relevant and more specific today to those who have just let go of church and God belief and they've come into the secular world, into their atheism or agnosticism. So let's talk about different characteristics of someone who is at that stage of adolescent atheism. They're new to it. Some people have these characteristics. I know I did years ago. Number one, you feel hurt. There are a lot of hurt unbelievers out there that have recently let go of church and God belief. You've been hurt by others. You've been hurt by a loss of friends and family. This can happen. There's a way to get healed up from that. We will discuss that. Here's another characteristic. You feel like you've been damaged. You're damaged goods. I've heard this from many people. Oh, David, I am too damaged to be of use to anybody else. Now, I have a friend at a local group. Oh, hell, it's right here at ACA. I got his permission. Of course, I will leave his name out. And he joined me a couple years ago, and we met for breakfast. I wanted to make sure that he was at that stage of maturity. He wasn't still in his angry stage before he went out with me to promote secular humanism and positive atheism and so forth. He made a comment to me and he said, I am damaged goods, David. I can't be of any use. I'm too angry and hurt because of what Christianity has done to me and so forth. Well, the good news is he did go out with me and yeah, he was still kind of hurt. But he's a very productive part of this community right now. He's a beautiful example of someone who matured out of his adolescent stage. Another characteristic I would like to call victimology. You feel like a victim. I felt like a victim. I was victimized when I was a child from the 1950s all the way up until I came to my atheism, for 32 years. Before I get into childhood indoctrination, I want you to look at this from a different point of view. Those of you that are parents or grandparents, you got to understand that not all Christian parents and religious parents have victimized or indoctrinated you because they are bad people, because they're evil. Most of them, like I did to my kids back in the 80s and 90s. Most of us who were believers at that time, and even presently, Christian parents, not all but most, are good people. Many parents in Christianity indoctrinate their children. Why? Why do they indoctrinate their children? Why do they do what the Bible says? In Proverbs 22 and Proverbs chapter 24, train up a child in the way he or she should go. And when that child is old, they won't depart from it. Well, we know that's a lie because many of us have departed from it. Most of these Christian parents have indoctrinated their children. And many of you are at that stage. You're still hurt and angry and you feel like a victim. I get it. I've been there too. But know that most parents do it because they think that it would help you. They think it will benefit you in life to make you happy and have a better life. Their motives were correct. Now, I am very guilty of indoctrinating my daughter. She's 35 now, and my son's 33. Way back in the 80s and 90s, when I was still preaching. I wasn't a bad guy. I just thought that Christianity, that pounding the Bible scriptures into them, praying for them, doing all the stuff that evangelical Christians do to their children. I thought that was the right thing to do. I was just wrong. I wasn't evil, wasn't bad. Now, my parents did the same thing to me back in the 50s and 60s and so forth. It's not because they're bad people. Now, sure, I felt victimized, but the motives for most Christian and religious parents, not all, but most, are good. They're just wrong. So we got to keep that in mind. And if you're in your adolescent stage of atheism, I get it. I've been there too. And I'm still growing and maturing. There's some areas I'll go over here in a little bit that I'm still that adolescent stage and trying to get into adulthood. And it takes a while. All right, here's another one. I'm going to call it unhealthy anger. There's some reasons we need to be angry. But for the most part, most people that I talk to who are still at that stage, in their adolescent stage of atheism, they're still hurt and they're very angry. They feel cheated. You may feel like you've been lied to. Of course, we were told a lie, right? And if you're an older person, you may feel like you lost the prime of your life for an illusion. Now that is exactly what happened to me. From 1976 to 1989, I was a full-time evangelist, preacher, started 2 churches, did all that stuff. That was the prime of my life, age 19 to 32. That was the stage in all of our lives as human beings when the endocrine glands, organs, and cells are producing these feel-good hormones, these chemicals at top production, physically, intellectually, energy levels, memory, all that was at top production. But that was the prime of my life, and I was preaching an illusion. I was wrong. Now, when I came out of that, when I was 32 years old, that's 30 years ago, I struggled with this for a while. I felt like a victim. I was very angry because I felt like I gave up the prime of my life. I could have been a college-educated person, but I wasn't. I let that stuff go. My parents didn't raise me to go to school. They raised me in the ways of God, the Bible only. Now, I could have been bitter about that, and actually, I went through a stage. I was very mad. I felt like a victim, and I was angry because I wasn't encouraged to read outside the Bible, wasn't encouraged to go to college, to learn poetry, literature, world history, philosophy, science, evolutionary biology. Didn't know anything about that. We were protected in our Jesus bubble from that. I had a lot of reasons to feel like a victim, and I was very angry. And it showed in my attitude toward other people. It took me years to heal up from that. Now, I wasn't at that point in my life in my atheism, this is years ago, that I even met another atheist. I didn't know there were groups. We didn't have many groups back then. We do now, which is good. It's good for those who are hurt and wounded. And I get it. I have been there, believe me. It was just me alone with my thoughts and my books and my science books and philosophy books. I had to reprogram the whole way I lived and think. I felt like I had a blank slate. When I stopped believing in God, I was all alone. It was brutal. But I held on, and I kept growing and learning. But it did take years to come out of that angry stage. It did take years for me to come out of that stage of, I'm a victim. I've been victimized. I felt damaged. I didn't think I could be good for anybody else at that time. And I was very, very hurt. Now, there are some reasons to be angry as atheist. I think it was Greta Christina, I hope I'm saying that right, the author and the speaker. I love her stuff. I think I read her book years ago. I read so many books. Angry Atheist. She's got a point. There are areas in our life where we should be angry. I get angry when I see bumper stickers on cars, defund Planned Parenthood. That kind of ticks me off. I get angry when the Senate, the other day, has a preacher open up the session in the House and the Senate with a Christian prayer. I get angry when now some of the local legislative branches and government and states are now permitting and have passed these new laws to put "In God We Trust" in public schools. I mean, what's going on here? That angers me. Keep God at home. Keep him in your head, but keep him out of the public schools, keep him out of government. We know that. But that angers me when they try to do that. Now, the anger I'm talking about and you get healed up from is this unhealthy anger. When you treat other people in a bad way. That anger comes out. If it's a believer and they start talking to you and you get angry, you misrepresent what a good, ethical, mature adult can be when you progress. Normalizing atheism, secular humanism. So there are many people out there at that stage, and I run into them all the time. I don't have enough time to go over all the stories of my endeavors and my talks and conversations, of course, with Christians, but more and more now, since I've been changing, I'm gathering in people that just left church, trying to get them into these secular groups. Because there's a lot of them out there, and many of them are hurt. And I can see it on their face. I just spoke a couple weeks ago at one of the humanist groups here in town, and after, we have a Q&A time after the speakers come to these groups. And one of the ladies came to me after. She didn't want to openly talk about the questions she wanted me to hear, but she came to me later and she was angry. And I tried to explain to her about some things that are good in church, some things. Actually, a lot of things. The community, the other good things they do, they've learned through the years, minus the God stuff. But she was angry and still hurt, and she was in her 50s. She hasn't gotten to that stage where she wanted to get healed up and move on. Now, there's two things to get healed up. First of all, you got to remember, you do it for yourself, number one. Let those selfish genes go, number one. They always win out. Dawkins was right. It's okay. Get yourself healed up, number one. Then you can help other people. And that's the real important thing too, right? Find a community, a local, secular, humanist, atheist, agnostic meetup group, a community right here at Atheist Community of Austin. There's 3 others in Austin that I promote. And in Houston, there are many groups. In other cities, wherever you are, find a group of compassionate, caring, like-minded individuals who have been there and done that. Being around others helps. I didn't have that 30, 40 years ago. It was just me. My growth spurt into more maturity, I'm not there yet, I'm getting there, would have been much quicker and easier if I had a group of people, loving, caring friends. And number 2, I feel like an old radio preacher back in the day. I'd point at the screen and call this prayer number here for prayer, right? We don't do that anymore, obviously. But I would like to meet Dr. Darrell Ray. Never met the guy. I've read his book years ago. And it's called Recovering from Religion. And I wish, Mark, you got to get me some of his business cards. You got to get him on my show because I love what he does. Recovering from Religion. You can go to the website. There's a number you can call, and people will actually talk to you and help you through these stages. If you're hurt, you feel like damaged goods, you feel like a victim, and you have this unhealthy anger in you, and you want to mature. And remember this. This is non-coercive. In fact, my clients, as a personal trainer, always say, David, I appreciate you not forcing us to eat right or to exercise properly. I said, of course not. This is non-coercive personal training. They like that. They're adults. I don't want to tell an adult what to do. You need to do this, you need to do that. When you're ready to eat properly, when you're ready to learn to extend your life a little bit and be healthy as you mature and you get older as a person, I'm there to help you. I've been there, done that, done it for years as a personal trainer, fitness and health. 40 years of this stuff in fitness. Over 40 years. But it's non-coercive. So if you're one of those atheists that fit into this mold and you're still in your adolescent stage, if you're ready to get healed up, to be productive, do it for yourself because it'll make you a lot happier when you're free from that stuff. And then you can get out there and do some stuff for other people. And that even gets gooder and gooder when you do that. All right, so remember, let the light of secular humanism shine and have a wonderful day.
What are we doing, man? What are we doing?
No, you're done.